Excellent. Yes, Alan, please. Yeah, we're starting the.
Yeah, I received some very sad piece of news this morning that a colleague of mine, he wasn't a close friend, but his name was James Sivers. I knew him in Rhodesia. He actually gave me a lift from Messina up to Salisbury in 1976. I don't know where I'd have been with if he didn't give me a lift. I got quite friendly with him during my stay in Rhodesia that year, and he came down to South Africa a few years later, stayed in good contact for a little while. Then we lost contact. I was forced to return to the UK, as you know. Always remembered him, great man. But I got into Facebook contact with his niece, and it was her who emailed me this morning, or Facebooked me this morning, to tell me the sad news that he died of cancer. He must have been, it's about my age, so he must have been early 70s. So a great man. He was a great active supporter of the Rhodesian cause. And
let's have a few moments of silence in his memory as a friend of yours, and then I'll start proceedings.
That's going to be very appreciated by his family, I know.
Thank you. Right, I'll start the formal proceedings now. I say a few words in Old Norse. I'll light a candle and then we'll begin. Facing Norse. Jag speak alla helga kindir, mer jag minni mögo hendallar. Helt kvöld och helig kväll sinir, hel natt och nifter, redan magum lite saker sinir och gevit sitt jondum sigur. Alle aanzichter als in je helsjouwen voor het fold. Maar ook mijn witke verdokker mij tweeën, al lijkt het in de middeleeuwen. Brander af brandy, brenn ons brunnen air, funny kwekes af funna, mother af money, burster at maulikude en tiltalske af dul. Flame is quickened by flame, a man from another man may become wiser, but from his own conceits may remain ignorant. Truth, like the sky, is above and beyond us all. Gods of our peoples and lands, may we spend this time together in friendship with you and with each other, and use it to the common good, with profit and with pleasure. Hail, Odin. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Terry Unger, who's, I wouldn't say a lifelong pagan, but certainly you've been a follower of the faith for longer than a lot of people have been alive. So that's a rare thing nowadays. It's a great pleasure to have someone joining us from such a long way away, which is technology has allowed us the facility to do. And you're going to be talking about something that actually helps people who are in considerable problems. So please let's hear your account of the ninefold Heilvegr.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's not a how should I put it? I'm a frequent user of Zoom. We use it.
Bon, donc là maintenant, écoute, celui qui devait parler après moi, il va commencer à parler maintenant. Et donc je sais pas que faire moi. Hein.
Yeah, Yves. Hello. I'm sorry. You weren't here at the beginning, and I didn't have a message from you, so I didn't.
Attends, Martha, arrête, on parle tous en même temps. Laisse tomber, Martha.
Vous parlez anglais?
Pardon?
Est-ce que vous parlez anglais?
Doucement. Parlez un peu plus douce. Why do you keep messing me about? Why do you keep saying one thing and doing the complete opposite over and over again? You told me you were never done. But you were never going to go back there, and don't try to tell me that she's made you do it. Oh, please. I deserve that.
Is that the television from somewhere?
Sounds like I think we've connected to a
We
real
should
life
try.
situation.
We should try to do mute all, maybe, State.
Yes, I'm going to do that for the moment. Let's mute
Okay.
all. Right, mute all. Terry, please unmute yourself and continue.
All right. Can you hear me?
Clear and strong.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's the very first time I've been doing overseas Zoom meetings. We do quite a bit of them here in the States, and in particular in Texas. It's a medium that we have found to be quite helpful at this time because of this COVID stuff going on. It's difficult to get together. I think we all know that. Here in the States, and in particular in Texas, COVID is particularly strong right now. We're not sure if this is a second wave, whatnot, but our hospitals are almost at capacity. Our clinics are almost at capacity. So we're definitely packing people in. And that just gives you an idea. But in my case, you said, yeah, I've been a practicing pagan for more years than some people are alive, and that's true. I'm 68, and I've been practicing for at least 35 years, if not more. And a few years ago, I mentioned that to a very young liberal audience, and they actually took offense to that. When I told them that I've been doing this longer than some of you were even alive, and to me it was a statement of fact, but to them it was an offensive thing, and I had I was approached by the organizer who put this little get together on, that I should apologize, and I said, I'm not going to apologize for something that's the truth. Why should I apologize for something that's the truth? If these kids don't like it, maybe they should go get a real job or something, or go into the military where they can actually learn what it's like to be really offended. But anyway, I have a few things that I can talk about besides Heilvegr. We do use Zoom a lot for Heilvegr. We hold Heilvegr meetings on Zoom Sundays at noon, Tuesdays at 10 o'clock in the morning, and Thursday nights, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. I steer the Thursday 9 p.m. meeting. Now, Heilvegr was developed to help people with alcoholism and drug abuse, but we quickly found that some of the same techniques that can help those people can be also available for people with depression, anxiety, and also PTSD. I believe it's now PTSS, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and it does work. Now, this was actually birthed in the prison system in Texas. We were contacted by one of our kindreds on the outside, was contracted, who had members on the inside of the prison system, saying, look, some of the boys have to go through counseling like AA or NA. It's part of their sentence, and they do it here in prison. But because they're heathen, because they're pagan, they do not feel secure and right giving up everything to a Christian God, where the AA programs state that you have to give up yourself, your everything, to the God and let the God take control. Where in heathenry, we know that's not true. Gods expect us to handle our own laundry. And a program was developed. So some of the fellows on the outside and some of the guys on the inside sat down and hammered out a program. And it's, excuse me, it's kind of based on the how an AA meeting would be run. This is the book. This is available on Amazon. If you want to find it, it would be under Woden's Folk Kindred of Texas. It says Heilvegr, the right way, the healthy way, the holy way. Now, the book is originally designed to carry out a sit-down meeting, an in-person meeting. And it goes through the various steps, the 9 steps, and each step is one of the noble virtues. For instance, one thing they talk about here is peering into the well of weird with courage and honesty, where a person has to admit that they get to the bottom. How did I get there without making mistakes? It was all me. And you focus on a power of choice that shines very unflatteringly on my past. You're forced as a person to confront that past. This is one of the steps. They get into an honor. Honor is often called the sum of all virtues, but it is a lot more. To live with honor is to take up our duty, to fulfill our obligations, and to show ourselves as true heirs of Vanzu, of our gods. Honor is a reflection of a person's dedication to themselves, their family, and their folk. Honor is fueled by an inner strength that drives us towards loyalty and duty. Honorable people tell the truth, are faithful to their friends and family, and fulfill their obligations to their people. Honorable people are treasured by those around them, and the Heilvegr is at its core an honorable path. They talk about wrestling with Grendel's mother. Many different things that come out of our mythology is used in the book to show you how in mythology, for instance, Grendel and Grendel's mother can be equated to some of the things that we do. For instance, in the stories that take up Grendel and his mother. Grendel, Beowulf cuts off the arm, but that does not stop the problem. He has to go after the mother, who is the root cause, where he keeps going down, down, down in the water. And it is very symbolic to going into the well of weird, to look at yourself and then kill the mother, Grendel's mother, and then come back up and you can be refreshed and renewed. You have to kill the problem yourself. Nobody can do it for you. You have to master that yourself. And that's basically how a program is run when people are all around. This is what goes on in our prison system. Now, the prison system has, in Texas, has officially adopted this program for heathen and pagan inmates to use in place of the Christian-based Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. And they're seeing results because people are taking responsibility for their actions by themselves, right where it's supposed to be. Nobody can help you. You have to do it yourself. We can stand there with you. We can push you forward. We can pick you up or help to pick you up when you fall a little bit or stumble. But you're the one who has to do the work. You know, it's Orlog and weird, no matter how you look at it. You put that material in the well that put you there. Now you have to dive into the well, find out exactly what it is, and fix the problem. You have to deal with it. You have to kill Grendel's mother. Now,
is Grendel's is that the focus of the part of oneself that one has to conquer? Grendel's mother,
yes.
particularly.
Yes, this is that is one of the root causes that they look at, and they use Beowulf and that particular part of the Beowulf story to help people see that you have to dive down just like Beowulf did and get at the root of the problem. You cannot just chop off an arm. That doesn't solve the problem, because the root problem still exists. Another Grendel can pop up. You have to go after the root cause, which is in the story Grendel's mother. And they talk about the well of weird and how you have to dive down in there, and how it equates then to Grendel's mother. Now, this is what goes on in an actual sit-down situation. They even tell you in the book how to set up the meeting place, make sure there's some coffee there, the chairs there. And one of the things that we get into then is obviously we don't do it that way when we are online. We now seem to have a certain group that meets on all of these designated times. We also bring in other heathens and pagans. So far, this has caught fire in Texas, but it has also been picked up by the Appalachian Pagan Ministries, who is run by a heathen. Her name is Donna Donovan. She is the Gaitha there, and she has spread this throughout the prison systems in Ohio and West Virginia, and she also has it started up on Washington State and I believe Oregon. So the program is really taking off. But we have, for instance, when we have a meeting online on Zoom, we don't go through the 9 steps. That's something, if you're just doing this online, the 9 steps you're supposed to do that yourself. You have to discipline yourself to do that yourself.
So
now,
are the 9 steps that it's not that you do 1 step and then you down the line do step 2. You're trying to fulfill the sort of 9 charges, from the word go. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you have to do them in order, and every now and then somebody like me will call you up and say, "How you doing, buddy? Where are you?" But when we do this online, you're expected to do that, and we go into something. We start off with a short kind of prayer and dedication, but we remind each other about the 3 reeds that exist in here. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of that. The Heilvegr Fellowship is a group of men and women who share their experiences of strength and hope with each other so that they may strengthen their weird in order that they may help solve their common problems and help each other find their way. Now, that's the first read. It more or less introduces the people, especially new folks, to what we're doing online. The second read talks about the Heilvegr Fellowship should provide a sense of community. The members of the fellowship must hold each other accountable. The fellowship meetings cannot devolve into a fault-finding session. Each member of the fellowship should be able to help the others on each step and also receive help on their journey. The Heilvegr Fellowship should recognize the achievements of its members and move through the steps. Praise is a big deal. When somebody has done something really well, when they are moving through the steps, when they have conquered something, just one little step, people need praise. So many people, as they grew up as kids, never got anything praise-wise from anybody. So praise is important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Heilvegr Fellowship should grow together in heathenry, with heathenry. The heathen ideas incorporated in the 9 steps offer only the slimmest of outlines of our values and beliefs. The more we learn, the better we understand the phenomenal strength of our ancestral tradition. This is all about, once again, learning more about heathenry, which is tied in, but also at the same time, focusing on one more important aspect, which is involved in the 3rd read, which I'm not going to read. If you're familiar with the term, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Mm.
In other words, what goes on in the meeting stays in the meeting. It's a private affair. You don't tell your wife, you don't tell your girlfriend, you don't tell your boyfriend, nothing about what happened in the meeting. If they ask, you say, well, it was a pretty good meeting, or some fellow had a serious thing he had to get off his chest. That's it. You don't say who, you don't say why.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an important feature. And we have found that it works. It's nothing fancy. It certainly is nothing fancy. It's very simplistic, because so much is devoted to the person. The person has to do it. There's nobody coming along helping that person. There is nobody that's going to hang on a cross for and take the weight off of your shoulders. It's your problem. You have to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Do you ask the participants to sort of fill out, I don't know, questionnaires, or to write about certain aspects of their experience, like a workbook, or is it mainly just in discussion dealing with people's kind of issues?
At this point, Stead, it's strictly discussion. A workbook would tend to be, it could be invasive depending on where the person left the workbook. Now, that does not mean that a person cannot buy a journal or something and write down their thoughts and whatnot on a journal. We don't require one, and I'm not sure if they do so with people in the penal system. I'm not aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is best. We have found that it must be just a verbal thing for now.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not mean that the individual can't do that on their own.
Mm-hmm.
All I gotta say is it works. And it's a very, for heathens, it works.
Mm.
We strictly have pagans and heathens in this thing, because it's just, well, for the same reason heathens don't work well in Alcoholics Anonymous. We can't expect a Christian to feel secure and have it work well for them in the Heilvegr Fellowship, because of the different worldviews of how religion per se is approached.
Mm-hmm. Are you happy? Have you almost finished your formal presentation and we can open it to questions, or would you like?
I tell you what, let me say a few more things.
Yeah, please.
I can say a few more things other than the Heilvegr. People ask a lot of times about Texas. People have a strange idea about Texas because of the movies, and it's not really that way. John Wayne does not live here, never lived here. Chuck Norris lives in Oklahoma, that kind of thing. But, and climate, I talk a little bit about you. People would find it's hard to believe where we live here in Texas that we have palm trees growing up alongside of Texas scrub pines.
Mm.
Unbelievable, right? But yet this is what you see. Now, Texas heathenry is a little different, and it's a little different in the respect that it's a little more relaxed, but it is very hell-bent on freedom. It takes pretty much what went on here in Texas at its formation with when they rebelled against Mexico, the Texicans, which were European settlers, and the Tejanos, who were of Mexican origin, who lived here, and they revolted against the Mexican government. So that freedom is very much the salt that gives flavor to Texas heathenry. We have 4 501, what are known as 501c3 nonprofit Texas heathen religious church organizations that are legal, just like the little church on the corner. We're looking for more, and each one of the kindreds is run. They can be run anywhere we want. You will find that 1 or 2 of the kindreds use a tremendous amount of democracy. The others use some autocratic behavior to a degree because they feel it's necessary to get some work done. We are all independent, but yet we have a certain alliance. And if we get more in Texas, which is possible, we'll take it. We are certainly, right now, we're looking at creating another 501c3 organization that will be created by the kindreds, where the kindreds would be the owners and directors of the entity. And that entity would then be a teaching arm, essentially, and also, but more importantly, a device where we can ordain our own Gothis and Gaithas, which is important to us. There is this thing that exists in the world, I believe it's called the Universal Life Church. Anybody can apply to them, get an ordination, and that's fine. I have it, most of us do. That makes us legal under Texas law. So when I do a hand fasting, I'm legal. But one thing we would like to do is create our own religious institutional accreditation, where we have that besides something like the Universal Life Church. Now, as the in my position as the president and so forth of Frigga's Folk Kindred, that automatically, in a sense, makes me the Gothi of that too. Just like a friend of mine, Mike Rich, he's the Gothi and president of Thunis Folk Kindred down in San Antonio. And this is the goal that we're trying to achieve, to bring heathenry in Texas mainstream. We want people to see that we're normal people, that we're not a bunch of blood-hungry ghouls or anything like that. In other words, we're trying to get rid of the Christian stereotype of what heathens and pagans are, that they still perpetuate. Now, I have good friends in the southwest of the country who are doing similar things, where they want to set up a regional area within the southwestern part of this country and have a ordinational body and sourcings of teachings. And it's coming here. It's coming in the States, but it's a constant. You got to work. You got to work. You got to work at things, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, very long process. Yeah.
And I know you asked me about my books. I don't write so much anymore. One of the reasons I don't write so much anymore is I'm busy doing other things. I right now, the books that are available, I think there's 7 books available, and I have more than that I discontinued because I was not happy with those books. The 7 books that do exist, I'm happy with, and they're real different kind of thing. The Reluctant Hero trilogy was the first group of books I wrote, and that's pretty much a fantasy fiction. And it involves one particular family over 100-year period. It involves a lot of sites in actual places that I've been to in the States, and also there's some sites in Europe that I've been to that are in also. And I wrap mainly our Germanic mythology around the story. I try to bring our gods and so forth to life. Woden's involved, so is Frigg. I bring in Zeus and Hera, and he doesn't do too well. Zeus doesn't do too well in my books. He's kind of like a cad, so to speak, in my books. You'll find the ladies in my books get a little more attention, and in the trilogy they certainly do. And there is the final book is called in the trilogy is called Ragnarok, and this particular place in the Adirondack Mountains is where Woden instructed the last of this family clan to build large pillars where so many of the kids that they put their kids safely into to withstand the fire and the water of Ragnarok. And then they all come out. And of course, everything is wonderful, but I mean, it's a fantasy fiction kind of thing. People like it because it talks, it brings in mythology, it brings a lot of folksy stuff in, and it was told. There's no dialogue in the book, no dialogue between characters. It is an attempt of mine, and possibly a weak attempt, to tell a story as a storyteller. The church gets a fairly even-handed treatment, but they're still the bad guys to a degree in the book. But it's an interesting thing. I wrote 5 detective stories, the Nick Hammer detective series. Those books are available. Those are available paperback and also ebooks. They're not expensive. They are novellas. They're meant to be taken, and in 2 or 3 hours you're going to be done with a book. They're meant to be entertaining, and they're written as if they were episodes, as if you were watching a novella on television.
Yeah.
The last book, the last book, Finding Polaris. I probably won't write anything like that again ever. I tried my damnedest to write as close as I could to being a textbook, and I still can't get away from some of the folksy things that I like to throw in. I just can't help myself at times. For instance, I wrote a thing about the Christians have this thing about Constantine saw writing in the sky. So and it was in Latin. So my folksy thing is, well, I guess the God decided to talk to a new convert, skywriting in Latin or something like that. And people thought it was funny, but again, I'm only giving you what I remember. I probably won't do that again because there was so much of a topic, that was very, very difficult to, I use, I think, 30 sources, and I could have used another 130. And it was just so much work. And trying to be honest and trying to keep my folksiness out of it, because my folksiness is kind of like my opinion creeps in there. And of course, yeah, I had an agenda when I wrote that. Pretty much the conversion period had nothing. It was nothing like Christianity purports it to be now, and even back then. No, people were not beating down doors to become Christians. They just were not. Any questions? I guess we can open up, because I know this. I know kind of what's going on. I guess I'm the only speaker.
No, Yves is here, and I hope he will be taking over at 8 o'clock. So, yeah. Well, thanks very much, Terry. Michael.
So I guess I've got a question. First of all, I should just say that I'm much older than you are, Terry. So
you shouldn't say that.
But I've had probably about at least 60 years of pagan experience.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the old man in the room.
You're not the old man of the world. I know. That always helps. Okay, I loved your statement on the people need praise. That's beautiful. Yeah. And what I got confused on is the Heilvegr is that you're not just doing this within prisons. That's something that you also do
on the outside.
Pardon me?
We're doing it in prison.
Only on the outside. So you're not doing work. You're not doing this within the prison.
I am not. No. I have a problem with small spaces. When you lock the door behind me and I got people with guns around me and big sticks, I got a problem with that. It is being done in prisons as in place of, for instance, an AA meeting, and it's done in a similar manner where the men sit around in a circle and they conduct their meeting in that manner.
All right.
On the outside, Michael, on the outside, because we don't have a lot of people in one particular area, we do the Zoom meetings.
Yeah. I mean, that's like what we're doing now. I mean, that's
right.
We all seem to be doing that. No. Okay. I mean, with the prison work, I was just wondering whether you were if you know Patrick McCullum, and because
I know of him.
All right. He's a pagan, and he's done a lot of prison work, and he's a chaplain in whatever it is in California, but he's organized all the chaplains, or not all, but as many as he could get together. Usually they meet at the American Academy of Religion. And so he has had a number of us all come in as speakers, explaining paganism, explaining heathenism, explaining Wicca, and this sort of thing. And so it's been really fascinating seeing that kind of reaction.
Yes.
I've got one other question. I think it's one other. All right, I'm going to ask, as an American, a very American type question. Does the Heilvegr basically support Trump? Where is it politically?
The Heilvegr?
Yes.
Does it support? Heilvegr is non-political.
It is non-political. All right.
It is non-political. Anything, for the most part, we, for instance, for myself, you're an American, right?
Yes.
Okay, First Amendment with the separation clause.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very careful as a religious leader not to step over the line where you are endorsing one party or another, where you are endorsing one candidate or another.
Right.
We must remain.
Does happen all the time, doesn't it? I mean, a lot of groups do that.
Yes, but those, unfortunately, Michael, not unfortunately, but They are larger groups who, through some other
Yeah.
funding or whatnot. All right. So because we're smaller, the last
Yeah.
thing we need is to have the government
Yeah,
stepping on us and squashing us. And I say that because I know of a group actually they were in Maryland and I believe Virginia, and this is going back about maybe 20 years ago. They were an established 501c3 group, and they made one statement, and they had all that taken away from them. It was a heathen group.
Yeah.
They had their own property, their own building, everything.
Wow.
And
All right.
and they were shut down because of it. And yes, it's not fair, but this is how it works. You almost have to, you literally have to play the game. You have to know what to say and when to say it. I myself will say absolutely nothing that will put myself or Frigga's folk kindred in any kind of danger of that happening. Especially
All right,
now, since we were just given tax exempt status by the state.
Congratulations. I mean,
Thank
I
you,
think
sir.
the Pagan Federation here in Britain is still trying to get that.
It's tough. I mean, it's amazing. Texas, if you're a resident here of Texas, it's very easy to get it done. If you want to hire a lawyer, they'll charge you maybe $400 or $500. But if you do it yourself, it costs a mere $25.
No, that doesn't work here. I think we actually did have to get a lawyer, but yeah. But good luck on all of that.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
And good luck with the COVID business too.
Well, yeah, it's pretty nasty. It seemed to be leveling out. Now it's back, and it's worse than ever. And right now, everybody's pointing fingers. We opened up too soon. We didn't we didn't do this. We didn't do that. They're blaming our governor, who opened up and said, well, you don't need masks. And now he has a mandatory mask edict out there where you can't go anywhere outside of the house without a mask. I mean, you can get in your car and go, but if you want to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, well, that begins over here. That begins for us the end of next week. It was masks now in stores, but yeah, it's. Oops.
Oops.
Who is that?
Who's that?
I'm trying to make myself stumm, but I can't do the text.
Oh, Mike. There's a mute button far left bottom corner of your.
Yeah, I pressed on it. You can still hear me.
We can't hear you now.
There. Now it's gone.
Good. We're what's the time? Yeah, we're just 2 minutes away from 10 to. Would anyone else like to ask Terry a question?
Yeah, I think I might venture something, Terry.
Yes,
you know, I don't know the 12 steps well, but I do know that it starts with giving over to powerlessness, you know, that you don't have power over the addiction, for instance, etc. And where you come to the 9 noble truths is something very different, you know, and also the Odinist values, you know, it's rather than strength and courage and joy and freedom. Has anybody tried to maybe put them together, you know, side by side and work something out to see where does it come together, where not? Because I find in prisons that Christian missionaries do quite a lot of work. AA, the 12 steps, do quite a lot of work. We do know that, in fact, the 12 steps do not always work for people. and Christianity it's very much a hype. So I just want to see, you know, whether you've actually made a comparison so that you can talk from a place of knowledge.
Let me see if I understand your question, Christina. Have we made a comparison between the AA 12-step and our 9-step?
Yes.
They've done that. The fellows that we have that are incarcerated, they have done that.
Okay.
And the biggest fault that they had was a heathen is kind of is not ready to give up control over his life, or should not, where Christianity requires it because it is part of the Christian salvation doctrine. You know, you give yourself up, you believe in me, no matter what I say, and you'll live in paradise forever and ever. Well, that's something heathens and pagans, for the most part, don't buy into. So to accept giving up everything for a heathen it doesn't work. And once again, the fellows in prison, that was their biggest complaint.
Ah, okay.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Michael is going to say something, but I like what you're saying, because that's really great to hear.
So that was a major thing when all of this was being put together.
Okay.
That we take the 9 noble virtues and use them as steps, put meat into those steps, but the emphasis is on the person. You put yourself there, you have to bring yourself out. It's your responsibility. The gods didn't put you there, you did.
Michael, please.
So when you get down to the depth of the well weird, explain to me more about the killing the mother aspect of it.
Okay, in the tale of Beowulf.
Yeah. All right. No, I understand the tale part, but how do you translate that into somebody's psychic level of equilibrium?
This is where it gets very subjective for the individual.
Yeah.
We talk about diving into the well of weird. This is where your problem lies. The source of your problem.
All right.
This is where you must go into. You have to. It is actually the well of weird. You dive into yourself. You find for yourself what you did by admitting that you did all these things, to put yourself there. All right. And this is where the example of Grendel and Grendel's mother comes in, where it's not good enough just to cut off Grendel's arm. That's not enough. Yes, Grendel runs off and dies, but it's not good enough. You have to, as Beowulf did, he dove into the sea. And he went down and down and down, and he found the source. He found Grendel's mother, who could easily create another Grendel.
All right. So it's not his mother. I forget. See, I'm not that familiar with this particular formation. I'm Adic, so it's not his own mother.
Well, in the sense of the story, it was.
All right. And then, but isn't there's a conflict, it seems to me, because the mother is the source. Right. The source of everything, and the source of our life, of our bodies.
No, she's the source of Grendel. She is the source. As an example,
this particular mother,
not our mother. All right, it's not our mother in the sense of Frigga or anything like that. Right. It's the sense of this is a mother who has a son who can produce more kids if she wanted to. So you kill the one, you have to get at her, which is taking away the problem altogether. This is why when
Tiamat, essentially.
I'm sorry, could you?
Marduk and Tiamat, essentially.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right.
You have to kill the source, and
right.
they use that as an example. And when you dive into that well of weird, you're meditating. You go into yourself, and you find you have to be honest. What did I do to put myself here? And you have to be brutally honest.
So that brutal honesty is the killing process.
Admitting and owning that I did this. I'm going to take it and now choke it off. I'm going to kill it. I don't want it happening again. Now, what happens out of this process is the person then becomes remade into a better person.
Right.
Behavior that brought that person to that position is gradually then eliminated.
All right. That's lovely.
It's a lot of it is a lot of corrective behavior that the individual goes through. So we don't do that again. For instance, if you're an alcoholic, what made you that way? Correct. Find out. Get honest about it. Not just kill Grendel, kill the mother. Get to the source, and then as you're coming back up, as Beowulf did through the sea, okay, you become a different person. But coming up for every individual is going to take a little time, because it is a remaking and of that person and making that person better, more productive.
It's a nice application.
Yeah, I think we're
running out of time.
a few minutes away from 8 o'clock, and I think maybe on that note, which was uplifting, and it was a positive note, and I think people can get something from that thought who aren't necessarily alcoholics. We've all, lots of us have got things to deal with us. I certainly have them, and would like to improve myself more before I die. So that's a wonderful image, and I'd never thought of that. I've never thought of Beowulf in that way, and that is good. That is a really good thought to take away.
It is stunning. It's very stunning when you look at it that way.
I mean, the swimming and it's wonderful. Well, thanks very much, Terry. That was really good a contribution. I very much appreciate that, and for you to just speak perhaps when you weren't expecting to. That's wonderful.
That's fine.
Yves, are you ready to take over? If you can unmute by clicking the bottom right image of the microphone. Yves, ask him to unmute.
You blocked him at one point.
No, I don't.
You muted him, or did? Yeah, you muted him.
He's Yves, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes,
wonderful.
I've been hearing you all the way along.
Wonderful. Now, so you're all ready to present your talk about certain of the stanzas in Hávamál.
Yes.
Excellent.
It's over there. Yeah. Sure.
Would you like to unmute your video so we can see you?
Yes. You want me to unmute?
It would be nice to see you.
You cannot see me.
No, but we can't see you.
Talking steed. Oh, yeah. Normally. Wait a minute.
To the right of the mute button.
I have to look. Yes. it seems that my
video, stop video. Just press the stop video.
Just click on that.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. I see. There is something. There have been another video system that was still on, and now the camera. Yeah. So now you are using my camera, isn't it?
No.
If
No?
you look at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you should see a picture of a camera with a line.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Press it, click on it, and
okay, I did.
Good, wonderful, wonderful. Right.
Oh no, I'm a bit too high, so to say. Wait a minute. I have to put it now. Yeah. Okay. I want to be in the middle, not above. So fine.
If I may, I'll just speak for I think two and a half minutes just to introduce your topic, which I think is a very important one, and we're bang on time. We're doing very well. That's not just one of the most significant phrases in Hávamál, but it's also one of the most significant phrases in the entire canon of European paganism. Tonight, Yves will be looking at a few of the stanzas that help to illuminate the perennial teaching that the self is constituted by different parts or by different polarities. This is a teaching that typically distinguishes between the self described as being finite, attached, transitory, subjective, and perhaps human, and one that is described as being infinite, free, eternal, objective, and perhaps divine. This view of the self is current both in the tradition of religious mysticism and also in the non-religious tradition of psychological self-help. An example of which comes from the practice of mindfulness, where in order to attend only to the present details, one part of the mind will witness the other part being distracted by its own wayward thoughts and recognize this fact, as if one was standing at a bus stop and witnessed buses passing by but without boarding them. That's an example from the psychological tradition. Two quick examples from the religious tradition. The chariot in the Bhagavad Gita is almost a representation of the mind of a single person, where in the chariot on one side stands Arjuna, the man who is attached and finite, and the other stands Lord Krishna, the god who is unattached and free. And the dialogue ensues as to where the chariot will be driven to. The other example is in relation to the yajna, the Vedic, the Aryan sacrifice or blot, which is a physical sacrifice that brought mainly spiritual benefits. But in later centuries, the idea arose of the internal or purely mental sacrifice. And I think that's particularly relevant here in attempting to understand Lord Odin's self-sacrifice as a way to enlightenment that we can actually follow. He could sacrifice himself in the way that he did because he's God. We have a divine element within us, but we're not gods, and therefore we need to make the offering to something beyond and greater than ourselves, and to accept with some sort of equanimity, I think, whatever fruits that bears. This is just a touch on this really important issue of aspects within the self. I don't know how many people read the article by Colin Cleary that I attached with the notice, but he speaks about that very well. Anyway, without further ado, I shall warmly welcome Yves to say a few words. Please, sir, monsieur, we are ready.
Okay, so thank you. But well, I must first say you something. I will never count up to infinite. 1 and 2 is enough for me. I mean, that's my infinitive. More than 1 is already very hard to handle. Anyhow, I'm no longer a physicist, so I'm more on the side of literature, and though I don't mind so much about numbers. Now, you see, what I want to speak about is that, and to insist upon, is that when you read the translations of some part of Hávamál, sorry, I pronounce Hávamál, okay? Please, that's Hávamál or whatever.
Everyone has the right to pronounce however he or she wishes.
Okay, so well, anyhow, that the most of the translations that are there are many available translations, but well, the one I've been checking have a bit of a problem in giving a translation which states explicitly that there was some introspection into this text, and that's what I will develop now, to show that what are not the mistakes. They are not mistakes, but they are specific in interpretation that ignore the possibility of introspection in the Hávamál. Okay, that's really my point. Now, in fact, you know, I will focus, and also turn around 2 lines of Hávamál. The 2 lines are given in stanza 138, and it says, and given to Odin, Salfius salfium mea, which means self to self mine or something like that. And that's enough. That's the point I want to make clear is what that really means. It will bring us to many other things, but it seems, as far I will not argue that the community of Norse translations, and well, was not well aware that was here a real problem. So they have been jumping here and there above it, and that's what I'm going to try to avoid. Now, to say the truth, I started to study Hávamál more than 20 years ago. Sure, each time, each 5 years, there have been big changes into it. And the version you are speaking of, which is a new one indeed, well, has been changing many times, but that's the one you can find on Academia. That's the one you can find on Academia. Well, no, I will. So look specifically at the problem of what means to be given to Odin and self to self mind. Okay. Now, if you want to work on Hávamál, the scholar who did the most well accepted work is Evans, and Evans didn't provided actually a very good version of the Old Norse version. He didn't translate it, but he added so many commentaries that for those that want to translate it, they absolutely need. But I cannot. Well, yeah, okay. I don't know. Glossary. I cannot see. Well, I cannot look on my. But of course, I have this. I have this information on my computer. There's no problem. And in his commentary, the one which has been striking me the most, and which is relative to specific place in, well, one of the most striking ones is that he speaks of stanzas 138 until 141. So, and he says, these first four strophes, that's fine, nice French word, have given rise to an immense amount of discussion and argument among students of Norse paganism. So it explains why I think it's necessary to think a bit more about this stanza. Now,
is everyone familiar with the part of Hávamál that Yves is referring to? Perhaps Michael from Cologne, you're not, but most people are familiar. I take it. With anyone who's really not familiar, I just wondered whether it might be useful to read a translation in English.
Recapitulate it.
I mean, this is the it's I can give just a free translation. What 138 is, I know that I hung on a windy tree for 9 long nights, wounded with a spear and given to Odin, self to self me, on that tree of which no one knows where its roots run. They did not relieve me with loaf or with the horn, drinking horn. I cried, I did downwards, then I took up wounds, I screamed, then I fell back. 9 powerful songs I took up from the famous son of Bothor, the father of Bestla, and I drank of the precious mead scooped out of Othreire, the vat, the container that Odin won the mead in. Then I began to thrive and to become wise. I grew and I prospered. Word from word came from me. Work or deed from deed came from me. I sought deed. There was this process of the flowing of words. Orth meer af orthi orthsleteri, werk meer af werki werksleteri. This kind of flowing of words and flowing of deeds, and he throve. Thank you. Sorry for that, Yves. I just thought that might be worth.
No, it's fine. I was not prepared to give the context because, well, I believe that everyone knew this context. That's sorry, that's a specialist mistake always. Anyhow, one problem people have when they want to understand or to speak of introspection in general in the Old Norse language, the point is that, of course, there is this constant presence of the reflexive forms. Not all verbs have a reflexive form when they speak, well, they act on themselves, so to say. That's the reflexive stuff. And then also we can, of course, introspection is a reflective stuff. For instance, if I am explaining you in what is really to be reflexive, and then that to come into introspection, it has to speak of the mind of someone, and that it has to speak also at the same time of what this someone thinks about his mind, etc. You see, I give you a good, I think a very good example by myself. I am a very good example of what is introspection, because I am speaking of something and I feel a bit ridiculous to expose these things that are very simple at the same time. So you see, I am really in the position of being of doing introspection on my own speech, on my own speech, seen that I see as being slightly low level, so to say. That's exactly I am having an introspection, how to say, little time. Okay, so now I hope that explain what is what that encourages to think about one's thought, so to say. And so that's why I say I have only two numbers. That's already hard to handle. Now you can do that very often, and then of course you can open yourself to infinity. But let's say I'm quite close to infinity personally in general. So what happened that during the time I've been translating Hávamál, I spotted 6 stanzas that were in a reflectional situation, and that were also speaking of some kind of understanding of brain work. And that's why I believe that they are not just like that. I mean, that also one thing I observed in the classical translations, it is that they put a huge amount of attention on each stanza, and when the stanza is finished, it goes to the garbage can, so to say, and you start the other one. And I did exactly the contrary. Maybe I have not been enough cautious in translating each stanza, but I've been very cautious in trying to see what happens in the whole poem. Instead of cutting the poem in small pieces as everyone does, I try to see it as one poem, and it is coherent. And for me, I see to find it as being a coherent poem from the first line to the 165th, I remember, or 6th, whatever, line. It's always coherent for me. And when it's not coherent, then I try to think of it. So that led me to this story of looking at the ones that were having this common feature to mix up brain and self-brain, and the brain's thinking about itself. And before just to say what another detail which is important is that I know that in many cases people have been have been despising the process of introspection, and for the reason that people they dream things and they call it introspection, and that's not false. But in the case of Hávamál, that's Odin who is always concerned, and Odin has always a task, and always speaking of a task to execute, so that there is always an action to reach a goal. And this is why I tend to speak of active introspection, to make the difference between introspection in general, which can be really dreamy, and the one we find in Hávamál, where it's really important that the people are doing something, and at each time, so in each instance, I will tell you what is the thing which is achieved. So the first one that shows this feature is called is the 18th. So now I will give you the context of this one. The one, so the English translation, which is my English translation, which is not so bad English, but which is really how to say word for word. It's a literal translation, so this may be a bit strange for an English ears. So the one who is mindful, who far away travels, and lifts, which means undertakes here, much for traveling. What state of mind leads such one man? Leads such one of man. There is a genitive here. Who is aware of mindfulness? So you see, it speaks of a mind and of someone who is aware of mindfulness. That's obviously my definition of I'm too much. Well, sorry. That's one thing that always this problem. Introspection. I speak always of introspection, but I find a way to forget it about it, to forget the word. So I've been using mainly three translations. The one of Unger, Ursula Unger, summarizes that to he knows what knowing is. So you see, the text is what state of mind of who is aware of mindfulness. Doesn't say exactly that, huh? But in this version, Jung's version, you can see that he knows, and so some actor is thinking by knowing. What knowing is something very general. It's a knowledge, a human knowledge, so to say. It's no longer the one of an individual. So that in that case, of course, with this kind of translation, it's quite hard to feel that is an introspective sequence. You see, and now. Let's say that Larrington says about the same thing. He knows what sort of mind each man controls, but Orchard gives still another version, a very different version in my opinion, that he knows what wits every man controls. So now he speaks of the wits, human wits. He doesn't speak of what knowing. In this case, we are even further from with the Orchard translation. It's almost impossible to think of introspection. You see, so now let's say that my reaction is: how could someone be aware of mindfulness in general, and not be aware of his own mindfulness? It's quite possible if he's a bit stupid or something like that. But how a clever person can forget that? So that's why I insist on this stanza 18, speaking of introspection. Now, in this, for example, it's just I will not go speak of that again, but the events commentary is only on on possible translations. He rejects one, and finally he finds that linguist version seems to be the best one, which is he who the one who traveled a lot is a person of sense. He knows what he's talking about. So in this case, this version, that's another version where indeed introspection is hinted at least. Now, yeah, now, sorry. What is action? What action is taking place in this stanza 18? It's the one who far away travels and undertakes much for traveling. So a very conscious traveler. And so this is the one who is acting, and acting in very specific ways, because he controls the way he's traveling. Well, so that is an action, okay? And then I will skip the one which is in the stanza 20 because it doesn't add too much to the discussion. I don't want I don't want to speak too much. Yeah. But in this case, it speaks of when you are greedy, then you are ridiculed because your greediness make the wise ones laugh. So it's how. So the action is greediness and how to avoid being ridiculed among the wise ones. Now, that's two actions in this sense. Okay, it's still action here. Now the next one is stanza 20. And I will give you only the three first lines because they are the one that are important in this from this point of view. Well, there was a dog somewhere there, and he seems to be against. He doesn't like very much introspection. That's very doggish, by the way. Yeah. So it's stanza 28. It says, he thinks himself well knowing, who can ask questions and answer, or both together. So you see, now he thinks himself, and there is a condition which is the consequence of how he thinks himself. So that's again very near to introspection. And Jung and Larrington, both they have been giving a translation which evokes strongly introspection. So this is something for Jung. He accounts himself wise, who can ask question and answer them. And Larrington says almost with the same words. While Orchard again, it's funny, again is a bit trying to avoid evoking introspection, and he says that man seems clever who knows how to ask and answer. So you see, they are an external person who is judging that he seems doing that. I don't know, but I suppose that Orchard avoids more than the others to any hint at self-thinking, because you see, he seems clever. That man, don't know. There are other people that believe that this man is clever. Is clever. It's very different understanding. So now. Oh yeah, sorry. I was of course. I help. Well, this note helped me. I forgot about to say what was the actions during this introspective sequence. Well, So here, the action is to ask and answer. All that, you see, that the third different action we have in meeting. It's all in, it's all introspection. Now, sorry.
Yves, shall I read a translation of that? Should I translate that stanza? It might help to give context. This is just a sort of free translation. Why is that one is considered who?
Why what?
I was just giving a context. If people aren't familiar with the stanza, I've just translated briefly in English. Why is that one is thought to is able to ask and can say equally. The sons of men can conceal nothing which happens or goes around about men. Sorry.
Okay. So the next one is stanza 95, and again we have some interesting words to say about it. So the textual translation of the I think again the first three lines are. In the four, anyhow, the first line, thought alone, so thought, thinking, thought alone knows what is close to the hamlet of the heart. So that's the word, the little version. It's funny, I find it very nice to say that instead of the classical translation that say near the heart. No, it's the hamlet of the heart. It's much nicer. Okay, so he's close to the hamlet of the heart. He's alone in himself, in his soul, and so which means that any person lives in such a way that only his mind knows what the heart feels. And drunk give a very good translation as often. So only, she says, only thought knows what lives near the heart. That this is different from mind alone may have knowledge of the heart, which is the meaning of the three lines. They say thought alone. Okay, did that? She used only thought, but it's how to say it doesn't say that it's the thought of the person who is in the of the actor there. It's the thought can be a very general thing again. So it's the mind of someone can have knowledge of what is in his heart. That's exactly what said the poem, and this is something which is so no one but me know my feelings. That's in a crude way, so again, Evans does grammatical remarks about it, but does not say, does not give any information on what the action. So the action here is how to live in happiness, to have a kind of coordination in between the mind and the heart. The heart on this side, the mind and the heart, and then you can be happy. So that's an action which is very different. Being happy and making oneself happy, which is a very interesting one. So now the last one, so which is in stanza 138, is the one that says, "And given to Odin self to self mind," in the literal translation, and drunk, Lavington, and Orchard all translate by myself to myself. And as far as, so, well, you see, there is one person, myself to myself, but it doesn't say that, well, there is only one person. That's exactly the problem. Not an infinite number, but I need two. As if introspection means that there is me and me thinking about me. Here, you see, if they translate myself to myself, well, it can be one myself to a different myself, so to say. What happens very often when the people say me to myself or something like that, or something like that. Now, that really, what is important here is that the action that it's here if we see here introspection, well, that's the point. If we see here introspection, then we can think that the self, well, in Old Norse, between self and self-mind, you see, it doesn't mean, it's not the same word. I mean, myself to myself, while in Old Norse it is self to self-mind. Why did Odin or the poet had to not say self to self or self-mind to self-mind? And the translation that translate a different set of words is not really a good translation. That's why I insist on that it has to be translated for something like me to I, or I don't know, this kind of thing, but not myself to myself, or self to self-mind, as it is very properly said, in very, very tactfully said by the poet. He wants that there are two persons that are thinking, myself and my self. That makes the difference. Oh yeah, sorry. Let me finish this sentence. So now, in this case, there are many. Well, I mean, in this stanza, you have been reading it to Taylor before, and there are several actions. Odin is hanging, and he's offering himself to oneself, and he's gathering the runes, and he's falling on the ground. During this single stanza, there is a lot of actions that are performed, and that is very important because I want to note active introspection. So in this case of stanza 138, the amount of actions is kind of enormous, which which is not underlined usually, because Odin is a god of action. So I could see you wanting to say something.
Yeah, I don't, forgive me, I don't understand why you don't agree with the standard translation. I'm sorry, I haven't quite grasped that.
Why I do not understand why I do not agree with the standard translation?
I don't quite. I mean, the phrase "Gefin Odni sjálfum mér." I don't understand why you don't agree with the normal understanding.
Yeah, because self is someone, and not self, and self-mind is something else. So tell me again what is in Old Norse?
Well, I mean, in that phrase, I mean, sjálva is nominative. It's like I myself am
self-mind. I mean, it's mind. We changes self and self-mind are not the same. Are not the same words.
Yeah,
so
I mean, he
might point that something's different.
He's giving, and if one gives, one has the giver, one has the thing that one is giving, and then one has the personal or end to which one is giving the thing to. You have kind of three. I give the book to him. There are kind of three.
Maybe more than two. Yeah. Okay. That
Yeah.
on that point, I will agree with you. But since three doesn't make any difference for seeing or not seeing introspection. You see what I mean? So, well, sure, there can be obviously much more in this case. So there can be an infinite. So I come back to your interpretation that maybe you would like to see a kind of succession of an infinite set of giving to the other one, and the other one giving to the next one, and giving to the next one, and so on and so forth. And when you reach infinity, then you reach Odin himself. That is an interpretation, but it's not what I'm trying to push. You see what I mean? Yeah.
Is it, Yves? Is it you're saying that you think that this is an act that requires introspection and self-awareness, and that the translations don't bring that out? You think it's the action of someone who is aware of themselves in the action? Is that the point you're?
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes.
I understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, by the way. I'm not teaching so often. So now, I suppose that I am at the end of my talk almost, but I want to say two short things. It has been always when I was waiting, and now it's falling on the deck. So well, now there is we must. So we just have been thinking of the speaking of the introspective aspect of these sentences, and now we can ask a question, which is when there is a merging of two things, and especially that there is a stanza. Did I write it somewhere? Yeah, in stanza 5, 4. It's stanza 44. Stanza 44 says, "If you own a friend, you shall blend your spirit with him." So there is a spiritual merging between the minds of two. There should be. I mean, it's an imperative form in the original version. So find should merge their feeling, their minds together. So this. And there is another one which I will not give, but which is in 121, which says something which is very similar. So when we think of that, we can understand that, in a sense, Odin is merging with himself because he has no real friends. That's the point. But now there is still a question which is a bit dirty, so to say, which is not honest. But what part of himself is it Odin himself who merges to what he thinks of himself, or vice versa? Is it the thing that have been merged, that goes into, there can be two directions in the merging. and that's a bit, that's a bit, how do we, well, you know, finding too tiny details. But when we think of, yeah, when we think of Christianity, then we know that, well, modern thinking has been putting a lot of emphasis on the difference between yourself and your unconscious. You know, Jung, that's the Carl. Well, I love Carl Jung, but nevertheless, he's a Christian. You know, you cannot. I don't know. When you're a pagan, you cannot really love a Christian, but you can appreciate, and he's really a big genius. And so he has been explaining very well how these two sides of humankind, the conscious side and the unconscious side, may be joined, by the way, and he calls this phenomenon individuation. And it is a kind of, and in his work, we can see that it is a kind of supreme action before dying. If you and he says also it's very difficult. And he in the book where there was a small book where he told his life, and at the end of the book he said that he had a lot of work to perform, but he has been able to achieve individuation. So at least is one example of someone who says that he could do that. And yeah, it's in the book, which is called Memories, Dreams, and Reflection. Now, just as a conclusion, you see that this guy, well, this genius and this God are very different somewhere, because the God who could, or maybe the genial genius man who have been so on, whatever, has been merging himself into what he thinks of himself. There is no good and bad notion. They are at the same level of, well, good things and bad things do not exist, so to say. While in the case of Carl Jung, who is a Christian, well, I suppose you know his life. I mean, he has been fighted by Christianity all his way long. But if you have read the Red Book, you see that he's completely. He has been all his life obsessed by religion and Christianity. So anyhow, and this guy has been including the good me to the bad the bad shadow, and well, by the way, in my last book that I want to show you once at least. And actually, you can get it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you cannot get it cheap, but if you for 25, you can get it for $25, like I did. I developed quite an argumentation in this book about this kind of things.
Is that your final sort of conclusion? Is you think that these stanzas that have got reflexive references, that indicates that Odin was both like the conscious and the subconscious, and that's part of the process he's going throughout Hávamál in achieving some kind of individuation. Is that roughly?
Yeah, he's achieving it also, but some kind of but non it's not the same kind of individuation, because the Christian, for me, it's a Christian individuation merges your bad sides and your good sides, while there are no bad side and no good side in my religion.
Okay.
And I'm very proud of it.
I think that's a good moment to perhaps sort of wind things, because we don't have that much longer. And maybe, would anyone else like to, make some comments at all about this idea of the two selves being present there in Hávamál?
I just have a brief point of information for the group. While he was speaking, I looked up our speaker on Academia EDU, and there's about 150 papers on machine intelligence posted. But if you look way down on the bottom of the list, there's about 8 on this topic, one of them being introspection within Hávamál. Okay, so I was just looking at them, and they look very interesting. And they don't even cost $25. You can download them all for free.
Yes.
But papers by the speaker on that kind of topic, including his own translation of the Hávamál.
Yes, thank you, Roger. Academia is quite a good resource, and I was talking to Dirk, who is welcome, Dirk. Terry, you're going. Very good to have you with us. I understand you've got to go. Yeah, thanks very much for joining us. I was talking to Dirk about the fact that we both get messages saying that there are lots of papers that mention our name in order to try to make us subscribe to it. But it does seem a very good resource, Academia. And it's AJ, you must have some work on there.
Yeah, well, the point is that those people do not follow these 5 first introspective to reach the level of Odin in 101. So they make they are not me. I have the nose on the text. You see what I mean? I'm following it and sniffing like a dog to find things in it. While other people have much higher views than me.
Yes.
I'm quite near the ground, so to say. And from time to time, some people like that. I need it.
Thanks very much.
I was muted when I was trying to answer your question.
All right.
I have a bunch of stuff on academia, but unfortunately none on this topic, just on evolutionary psychology issues. So
I'm sure it's all good stuff, though. But probably quite difficult to read. Probably lots of maths involved, but
some yes, some no. There's variability.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, that's good. I'm pleased you're there. Hello, Dirk. Yeah, I think if anyone, unless anyone has any further points, I'm going to formally close the meeting. Does anyone have any other points? Right. Okay. I'll just say a few words and we'll blow out the candle. Amáltugi miskunn same asir at kveldi skal dagløyfa kono prender maki runde moya gevine ise ivekemmer ölda turkide og at not skal kvöld løyfa. This is gods of our peoples and lands. At evening shall one praise the day, and at night shall one praise the evening. We're thankful for what we profited by and for what we found pleasure in this evening. Sigur either, sigur os, Frigga either, os. Victory to you, victory to us, peace be to you, peace be to us. Convantrum vishwam arium, gyra gufka verildina sculum, let us make the world noble. Hail Odin. Thank you very much. Thank you, Eve, for joining us. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, AJ, Steve, Dirk, and Mick, and Louise. Yeah, if you're still in a very dark room, you look as if you're in. But yeah. Good to
Bottom
see
of the lake.
Yeah. Michael.
I'm still here.
Good. That's the main thing. That's the main thing. Michael, yeah, you're able to contribute for the bloat an interesting piece about beetles and birds.
Yes, probably. I would be happy to do that. Yes, at a somewhat more humble level than what we've been listening to.
You can also veer off the subject and you know, talk about something else if you want to.
No, it's an interesting, very worthwhile suggestion and challenge, and I'll do my best. At the end of every month, he wanted me to contribute.
Yeah, and if you'd like to write any poems or whatever, that it would be lovely to have that.
Oh,
you know,
fine.
Good to have specially written material, so that's very good. Steve, how are you? You well?
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm very well, thanks.
Where are you? Are you in France or somewhere?
In Spain.
Oh, right. How is it? How's
Lovely. Muy calor. Estoy muy calor. Very hot.
Are you working? Is work okay there? Or?
Yeah, it's starting to move now. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Everything, but yeah, it's starting.
That's good. That's good.
Back to normal. Yeah, interesting chat. Interesting talk.
That's good. Are you still involved in nutrition, or are you working in more physical?
Yeah, well, I'm actually starting to grow. I'm actually starting to grow produce.
Oh, that sounds good. That's
making products with various bits and pieces. So.
That sounds good. Hey, AJ, are you working on anything? I'm sure you are working on something.
Well, me and my two co-authors just finished last week copy editing the final page proofs of a book that should be coming out in September on multi-level selection.
Is that in cognitive abilities? Is that?
It's about everything. It's all human behavior, you know, the tension and dynamic interplay between group selection and individual selection. In other words, what makes you loyal to the group as opposed to looking out for your own self-interest. And it's a kind of biological evolutionary analysis of the dynamics of that in other species and humans through time.
That sounds wonderful. When is it coming out? When is it?
Hopefully September. We just finished the copy editing. You know, we have to proofread the thing. And I'm also teaching a seminar on it in the fall.
Would it be possible maybe to talk about that, you know, at one of these events for half an hour or so? It sounds fascinating.
It's a book. I mean, I don't know, I can try, but it's going to be hard to summarize. I don't think I can do a half hour, maybe an hour.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, that would be wonderful. Yeah, because I'm sure.
I mean, I'm teaching a full semester course on it, you understand? I'll have to pick and choose some bits and pieces. Okay.
Yeah, but I'd like to think our religion is based in nature, i.e., the facts that are true, and that's a kind of an important thing. It's that's the text that we study and try and learn from, the facts of nature, I suppose. So, you know, that would be a valuable thing. That would be a really wonderful thing. All right, then. Well, thanks again for everyone. I'll allow everyone to go off and have lunch or tea or whatever meal.
Or go to bed. Yeah, it's so strange, isn't it?
Yeah, good. Thanks a lot for joining, Mick and Dirk. Yeah, thanks a lot. All right. Yeah.
And thanks to you, Steve, as well, for organising it and everything.
Thanks. All right. Keep well. Keep safe. Hey, loading. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.